This is KKairos of Castle Teeth Games. Today we're going to talk about some ideas for Metroidvanias. The reason we're going to talk about this is that the last 5 Metroidvania months ever are coming up. This is a quarterly jam, and its last and final iteration will be jam number 34 next winter. The 5th to final will be starting in about a month. So let's get into these ideas. The first is to use custom weapons. And this inspiration could come from probably any number of sources. In my case, it's definitely the excellent roguelite Metroidvania hybrid of Weapon Hacker, wherein you can customize the amount of stuff that goes into a weapon based on your total maximum battery, which is one of the stats you can upgrade in the game. This kind of looks a little bit more like an FF7 materia to me, but I think it might be the approach that I would take more of weapons having gem slots, and also perhaps weapons being combinable to increase their stats and spit out an item that maybe matches one of the 2 items that you put into it. You'd want to make sure that items that are absolutely progression essential don't get combined, so maybe the hook shot can't be, or it has the priority so that whatever comes out the end is still a hook shot, something like that. Anyway, that's the first idea. The second idea is to present 2 paths. And so let's say we've got a character named Bob and a character named Sophie, and maybe Bob has a higher jump slightly and maybe a dash, and Sophie has the double jump or something like that. They would have maybe different paths that they could take through the same area. Now, this isn't exactly the same thing, but if you want a quick example of an indie game that's done something fairly recently, Rusted Moss, after you beat the game once as Fern, lets you play through as Maya. And that's pretty cool. Also, you're going to notice in a lot of the footage that I've taken that I'm not very good at these games. The only exception, I think, is going to be Weapon Hacker, which I was speedrunning at the time. So you have these 2 paths, and maybe Bob goes through the level once, and maybe, oh no, Bob's been trapped at that asterisk by some kind of villain or something. And then Sophie goes through and inadvertently rescues him. And it doesn't have to be in this order. It could be the other order. I think I'd want to give the player a choice of which one to start with. And then once they've combined their forces, they can actually traverse the level with kind of a greater mobility and get to areas they couldn't get to before, and finally reach like sort of the final area of the game. So the structure I'm thinking of is you start by selecting one character, then the game automatically switches to the other one. You would see the different effects that the first character had on the level, and you'd have to make sure that everything stays traversable for both characters and both stories until they combine into one. So that's the idea of the 2 paths. The next one is to do proc gen again, sort of combine roguelike procedural generation with the Vania structure. Again, inspiration here, Weapon Hacker. You could also add a robot named Fight, but Weapon Hacker is the real inspiration for me, despite being, in my opinion, massively underplayed as a game. Also, Totems of the Yonder, not really an inspiration in that I made it, but I would like to make something like it again. I think it did a pretty decent job, and it has, I think, a lot of promise with its generator and the spaces that it can create. I just need to maybe put a little more effort into it, a little bit more intentionally this time around. The next one be a Knowledgevania. I have a friend who really likes La Mulana, and maybe I got convinced by them to do this. I'm not 100% sure that it's a thing that I would be good at, because frankly, I'm not very good at La Mulana, and I discovered very early on that I didn't have a lot of patience for it. I think that the problem for this one would be how do I do it without making it either way too easy or trying way too hard and ending up with something very obtuse. So I've told the friend who may have inadvertently inspired me to put this on the list that he might be the one to have to play the game, and if he can't beat it, it's probably too hard. Then the last one would be to go full on to the action RPG, Igavania style of thing. So upgrades, stats, equipment, having that be a primary driver right along in parallel with your actual increasing skill and with your abilities as far as typical Metroidvania mobility abilities like the double jump and the dash or whatever are considered. I think that could be a fun experiment just to kind of really delve into how that works. Examples, of course, would be something like Castlevania. This is Circle of the Moon and Igavania from the Game Boy Advance. This would be Afterimage, which is not the same studio, but falls very heavily in that style of games where you can sort of like upgrade to make things easier as you level up. I think in terms of what I would like to do, it would be probably maybe a more of a hybrid thing where I would have chunky sort of level upgrades that are hidden. Whether that means in plain sight or actually hidden or just a reward for beating a boss, I don't care. But they'd be chunkier level ups, or at least more immediately stat impactful. And that's basically it. Those are my ideas for the last 5 Metroidvania months. I probably have other ones. The chances are pretty good I won't be acting on all of these. But those are the ones that I kind of have in mind. Of course, you are free to steal these ideas if you'd like. No two executions of the same idea will come out the same anyway, so the more the merrier. And of course, I'm going to do the typical YouTube engagement farm thing and say, hey, if you have ideas for Metroidvanias that you would like me to steal, please feel free to put those in the comments below. I'm going to be putting a link in the description to join the 5th to last Metroidvania month. If you're interested in developing a Metroidvania in 30 days and possibly winning some money, this is not a bad time to do that. It would be awesome to see more people in these last few months come into the jam and make something really awesome. So if you have the inclination, please feel free to join us.